Listen, this isn't a royal gossip story. This is the kind of whisper that gets people deleted from rooms, uninvited from circles, and quietly warned to never repeat what you heard. Because the moment this gets said out loud, the fairy tale doesn't just wobble, it fractures. The rumor starts exactly where these things always start, behind velvet curtains in a fancy room where the powerful relax because they think the world can't reach them. Candlelight, expensive wine, too much confidence, and one woman, Sarah Ferguson, allegedly letting her guard down for just a second. And that's when the room supposedly went cold. Because the claim wasn't about charity. It wasn't about palace drama. It wasn't even about Andrew's usual scandal cloud. It was about Meghan and the version of how she entered the royal world that millions of people accepted like a bedtime story. The alleged line that froze everything? Meghan wasn't new. She was Andrew's companion for 3 summers straight. 3 summers. Not one random meeting. Not a surprise love story. Not some innocent, wide-eyed entrance into royal life. If this claim is even half true, then the timeline people have been fed gets ripped in half like paper. And then comes the word that makes this whole thing feel uglier because it's not romantic, it's not royal, it's not flattering. Inventory. That's the word the transcript says Fergie used. Cold, casual, almost like she was describing a shipment, not a person. And in the yacht world, inventory doesn't mean handbags and champagne. It's a nasty label for a certain kind of guest, the kind that doesn't show up in the big photo moments. So now the story isn't did she know the family? The story becomes if she wasn't new, what else wasn't true? Because according to the transcript, Fergie's alleged point wasn't vague. It wasn't I heard a rumor once, it was she was already in Andrew's orbit. And that's a dangerous sentence because it suggests Meghan didn't just meet royal life, she may have already been around it, already seen the machinery, already known the doors to knock on. Then the story gets even sharper. A guest book, not a cute autograph book, not some souvenir, a log, an official kind of who was here when record. The transcript claims Fergie pointed to Royal Lodge and said every visitor got written down, no exceptions. And the line that hits like a hammer is basically this: you can't burn it, you can't erase it, it's in the archives. Because ink doesn't care about PR. Ink doesn't get intimidated by press teams. Ink doesn't get threatened by lawsuits. If a name is in a book like that, then it becomes a ghost that can be summoned at any time. So now the tension shifts from he said, she said to something more explosive. Receipts might exist. And right when you think it can't get more dramatic, the transcript introduces a character straight out of a thriller, a captain, a man referred to as Captain X. According to the story, this captain supposedly ran a luxury yacht connected to Andrew's circle, Lady Rose, during the same summers being whispered about. And here's where it gets nasty, because the claim isn't just I saw her once. The claim is that there were logs, and not the ones that got lost, but secret copies kept hidden. And the transcript says those yacht records allegedly had 2 categories of people. Official guests, the ones who can be seen, photographed, smiled with. Operational guests, the ones who stay low until night falls. Even reading that should make your stomach tighten. Because if the world believes someone entered royal life through a clean public love story, but the documents hint they moved through shadows before the crown ever touched them, then the whole identity flips. The transcript even claims the log showed a repeated name pattern across the years 2014, 2015, 2016, written the same way each time. And that's where the story stops being a messy rumor and becomes a controlled panic. Because if you're Meghan in this story, you don't just worry about tabloids. You worry about archives. You worry about people who kept copies. You worry about who has access to what vault, what hard drive, what private collection of evidence nobody is supposed to know exists. And the transcript's entire vibe is clear. Once that whisper got out, it wasn't just scandal, it was a countdown to names being checked, a countdown to books being opened, a countdown to people who thought they were untouchable suddenly realizing paper trails don't flinch. Because here's the real danger in stories like this: even if half of it is exaggeration, all it takes is one piece being true, one entry in a log, one timestamp, one name in a guest book, and then everybody who laughed it off has to swallow their words. Now here's where this story turns from dangerous rumor into palace-level paranoia, because once whispers like this start circulating, they don't stay whispers. They move. They get passed quietly between people who don't text, don't email, and never leave paper trails of their own. And according to the transcript, that's exactly what happened next. The mood allegedly shifted from gossip to containment. Suddenly, names weren't being spoken freely anymore. Conversation stopped mid-sentence when certain people walked into the room. Phones were flipped face down. Jokes dried up. And the same question kept floating silently between insiders. Who else knows? Because the real nightmare isn't tabloids. It's not bloggers. It's not even public opinion. The nightmare is private confirmation. People quietly checking what they already suspected. According to the transcript, several longtime insiders allegedly began cross-referencing memories. Not documents yet, memories. The kind you don't forget because they felt strange even at the time. Summer gatherings, yacht weekends, friends of friends who appeared, disappeared, and were never properly introduced. And suddenly, Meghan's name allegedly started fitting into spaces where it had never been publicly placed. That's when the tone shifts again, because the transcript claims Fergie didn't sound shocked. She sounded resigned, like someone who knew the game, knew the system, and knew exactly how often people get moved around quietly in elite circles. And that's the part nobody likes to talk about. Because royal proximity doesn't always begin with tiaras and titles. Sometimes it begins with access, with being useful, with being present without being visible. The transcript implies something even colder, that Meghan wasn't random, she was familiar, known, already assessed, already categorized long before the engagement headlines ever dropped, which leads to the most uncomfortable implication of all. If she was already around, then her later outsider narrative wasn't innocence. It was strategy. And that's where this turns explosive. Because once you accept that possibility, everything gets re-examined. The sudden ease of movement, the confidence in elite rooms, the way boundaries were pushed early on without hesitation. According to the transcript, this wasn't someone learning royal life, it was someone who had observed it from behind the curtain first. And now here comes the part insiders allegedly found most disturbing. Silence, not denial, not outrage, not lawsuits, silence. The transcript claims that when these whispers began circulating privately, there was no immediate counterattack, no aggressive shutdown, no scorched earth PR response. Instead, there was a strategic quiet, the kind that only happens when people aren't sure what proof exists. Because if nothing exists, you attack. If something might exist, you freeze. The story claims certain names in Andrew's old circle went unreachable. Invitations stopped, calls weren't returned, and a few people allegedly made quiet exits from social spaces they dominated for years. Not dramatic exits, controlled ones. And then comes the ugliest part of all, reputation management in reverse. According to the transcript, insiders say the goal wasn't to defend Meghan, it was to reframe Andrew, shift focus, flood the public narrative with so much Andrew-centric scandal that nobody would ever bother to zoom in on secondary figures connected to his past. Think about that. If everything explodes everywhere, nothing gets examined closely. And suddenly the question wasn't, is this true? The question became, who benefits if nobody looks deeper? The transcript also suggests that people inside these circles understand one brutal truth: the royal system doesn't protect individuals, it protects itself. If sacrificing reputations keeps structures intact, that's considered acceptable collateral, which makes the alleged claim even darker. Because if Meghan really was present in that orbit for years, then she wasn't protected by the palace, she was expendable if things ever turned ugly. And that's where the fear comes from. Because once expendable becomes inconvenient, people don't just get pushed away, they get rewritten, erased, or quietly turned into distractions for bigger fires. And the transcript ends on the most chilling note of all. Not proof, not documents, not photos, but timing. The claim is that certain records are sealed not forever, but temporarily. That some archives don't disappear, they simply wait. Wait for the right moment, the right power shift, the right internal war. Because in elite worlds, information is currency, and currency gets spent strategically. So the real tension here isn't will this come out tomorrow? It's when. Because stories like this don't die, they hibernate. And when they wake up, they don't come with warnings, they come with receipts. And if even one page surfaces, one name, one verified log, then the fairy tale doesn't just collapse. It gets exposed as something else entirely, something else entirely, something else entirely.